Hi Jane.
Hello Stacey, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, yes, yeah.
Good. We've got a few questions this week. Our first question is from Belinda Deacon, who asks, do you have a feed that is wheat, barley, oats and rye free?
Well, Belinda's in luck, isn't she? Because all our feeds are totally free from all cereals, pulses, molasses, additives, preservatives, and in our forage feeds, we don't use any ryegrass either. So any of our simple system feeds will suit Belinda well. So maybe she could drop us a line, use the online inquiry form, and we can put together a feeding plan for her that doesn't have any of those nasties in.
Perfect. I thought that would be a good one to start off with. And then following last week's Q&A, this isn't a question as such, but Barbara Kingsley Monks comments that she really struggled to establish sainfoin.
Yeah, sainfoin is hard to establish, and that's why 100 or so years ago farmers stopped growing it in favour of ryegrass, which had been bred for easy production. It responds well to fertiliser, and it gave them a good crop of forage without too much effort. The sainfoin is quite fussy. It doesn't compete very well with other weeds and other plants, and it requires a pH of 6.5 or above, so it won't grow on acidic soils, and some clay soils aren't quite alkaline enough for it, so you would have to put a liming agent on. Some people suggest to help get it established, when you start off with sainfoin, you mix it with timothy grass and meadow fescue, and that will help to keep the weeds away until the sainfoin gets going. But sometimes you don't get a crop until the second year, and because of all the care that has to be lavished on it is why A, there's not much of it grown, and B, why it can be a little bit more expensive than other forages. But once it's got going, it will keep going, and it's beautiful. The pink flowers attract bumblebees and honeybees, so it's good for the environment. It's deep rooting, it improves the soil structure, and horses love it, and none of them seem to have any adverse reactions to it. So it ticks all the boxes, but yes, it needs a lot of effort to get it going.
Thank you, Jane. We also had a message from Georgie Wood, our supported rider this week. Georgie said, we've just got some of this year's hay straight off the field. Are we safe to feed it straight away, mixing it in with the old stuff to start, or should we be leaving it a bit first? It's 90% Timothy and 10% Lucerne.
Right, well, it sounds like a very nice hay, and with the dry weather we've had, it's extremely early to be making hay, so good on you in that regard. But the advice is always not to feed very new hay to horses, because it's still undergoing biological changes. So if you've got an alternative, give it at least 6 weeks, and ideally the traditional advice was always to wait until after Michaelmas, which is the end of September, but certainly give it 6 weeks and then gradually mix it in. Some horses will be fine, but you'll get the odd horse gets a gassy colic on new hay, so that's why we're cautious about new hay. But what a nice mixture.
That's great advice, thank you, Jane. And we had a question from B. Pike this week, who asks, how can I work out how much hay to give my 3 ponies? They live out and the field they are in is now practically bare. They have a feed of Lucy Chop, Pura Beat and Total Eclipse. Their droppings are normal and they are not losing weight.
It sounds that whatever B is doing at the moment has to be spot on, because if you've got normal droppings and the horses are a good weight, then you've got it pretty much spot on. The feed they're getting is good, and the linseed in the Total Eclipse will help against sand colic, which is always a risk when we're grazing so close to the soil. She just needs to keep a very close eye on them, because if the dry weather continues and the grass isn't growing at all, then they will need topping up with hay. But the droppings being a little bit smaller will be the first sign that they're not getting enough bulk to keep them healthy, and you'll notice that even before they lose weight. Might be an idea to pop a weigh tape around them once a week so that you've got a second measure of their condition. And bear in mind that the reason there's no grass in the field is because it's in their tummies. They've eaten it. So although it looks bare, it is actually growing, and they are actually managing to eat something. So it's a case of close and careful monitoring. But it's a very valid question, Bea, so thanks for bringing it up.
Thank you, Jane. And our last question today is from Hannah, who says, I have an elderly thoroughbred in good condition, turned out approximately 16 hours a day on grass, stabled in the day. While the grass is poor, am I better topping him up with hay or extra soft feed?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'm glad to hear that this elderly horse is in out of the flies during the day, because the last thing an old horse needs is stamping at flies and shaking up their joints and risk splitting their hooves on hard ground. Older horses at some point won't be able to eat hay anymore. But while they can, then some hay in the stable is a good idea, and he will enjoy picking at it. It'll keep him occupied. But at some point, he's going to need soaked feed all the time. So yeah, at the moment, probably a combination of both. A bit of hay for him to pick over, but to make sure that he's getting enough, then soaked feed is ideal. Again, another relevant question. Thank you for bringing it up, Hannah, because lots of us have got old horses and they do need special care. So,
thank you, Jane.
So is that it?
That's it. That's all our questions this week.
Oh, well, they were nice varied bunch of questions, and always happy to chat. So it's good to have these questions. Maybe we'll get some different ones for next week.
Absolutely. Well, thanks as always for your time, Jane.
You're welcome, Stacey. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.